and we'll go from there. Okay, we're
Brilliant.
recording. Over to you.
Amazing. So kind of just to round up again, this is menti.com 80 92 72 8. And we use it at the start of most of our user groups for the community drivers, just to enable some kind of interaction in the virtual world, and also give you the option to ask questions and for us to get some kind of live feedback on what you're thinking. So just as we're kind of getting used to it, and to get started, I just move to the next slide, which it won't let me do. Two seconds. So the kind of first question, so it should have updated on your device that you're using, is what city are you joining us from today? So if you just type it in, you can see where people are joining us from. So obviously quite a few in London today, and a few different locations from around the world as well. So we kind of, if we keep doing this every week, we can start to see kind of how our community is growing further and bigger and stronger. So for anyone who's joined the call and is not quite sure what is going on, menti.com 80 92 72 8, just go on your phone, on your laptop, and you're able to kind of see these questions come up in front of you, and you can fill in the answers on your phone. For those who have already answered this question, just wait until we go to the next slide and there will be more options to get involved. So if I just move on.
It's a good turnout from the Midlands in the UK there.
Yes.
Unless they're all like Northampton, Pennsylvania and things like that. But yeah, we've got Nottingham, Northampton, Shrewsbury.
2 seconds, just being a little slow. Oh, and we've got more responses in that time as well. Right, so this is just seeing how many people attended our last session. So in June, that was our first ever session. But obviously we're looking to grow and continue. So just a good idea of how many people have attended before, or how many people new, will help us kind of in the longer term. Let's see how we're going. This is good to see. We've got lots of newbies in the room. So kind of if you've got any questions or anything, just pop them on the chat. We will try, and once we've had the talk from Bhad, who's joined us kindly today, we will do kind of lots of conversations and stuff. So any questions, pop them in the chat, and we'll also use Menti to get some questions and ideas going along the way as well. So then finally, as you can tell, we're obviously, anyone who joined early, we're all, you know, big online streaming services fans. So Netflix, Amazon, iPlayer, whatever you're watching, let us know so you can see if you've got any serious common ground or any good things to get watching. And this one, you can also submit multiple answers. So if you've kind of got another idea of something else that you want to watch, watching more than 3 things at once, feel free to kind of add them in, and you can just keep going 2-year-old loves Moana. I mean, I love Moana, and I'm not 2.
So many people recommend the social dilemma. And it's one of the very few things on this list that I've seen as well. I would definitely recommend that.
Still got some coming in on this, so I'll leave it for now so we can all get some good ideas for lockdown 2.0 when it comes.
Yeah, Bake Off is the Great British Baking Show. I think it's called Great British Bake Off, but yeah.
But if you know, you know. Cool. And then finally, before we go into our talk, we want to know kind of how your community engagement has been during COVID. So for people in the UK, you might have seen, you know, a few furloughs in your company, how the community kind of dealt with that, or is going into a virtual world and made it more difficult or better. So just kind of a real rough guess of how you think it's been since, you know, all this went down. Although I can't actually see
options to submit on this question.
Yeah, this one doesn't seem to have worked. So if we move on to the talk, because that's kind of what we're going to go to, I will have a play around with Menti and try and get this sorted whilst Bhad is talking. So I'll stop sharing and then we'll do a little introduction, unless anyone has any kind of questions they wanted to shout out immediately at all. No? Okay, so I guess I will hand over to Bhad. So Bhad works with myself at Lloyds Banking Group and has been doing lots of work in the kind of reporting space during the kind of COVID crises and as it's sort of emerged. And he's going to talk a little bit about what we found during that. So yeah, do you want to go ahead, Bhad?
Yeah.
Probably introduce yourself much better.
Cheers, thank you. Yeah, as Charlotte mentions, my name is Bhad Patel. People call me Bhad for short, and that name's kind of stuck. I'm coming at this from a kind of a unique perspective because what my role is within Lloyds Banking Group is I look after a team of analysts, and predominantly our analysis we do is mainly centered around using SQL, getting some Excel reports together that to show the data, stick it into PowerPoint, tell a story, and that's kind of it. And there was another department or another area within LBG, which is more kind of like Charlotte's area, which was looking after Tableau and Viz. So I was familiar with Tableau dashboards from a user perspective when I needed some information, but I was never involved in the build side of things and what actually goes into getting a Tableau together and really, you know, how fundamental and powerful it is. And that all changed in March. So in March, we all went into lockdown, as you know, and I was asked to kind of come off the work I was doing and managing the team to project lead a COVID MI reporting suite for our directors and senior members of LBG team. And it was in response to the COVID guidance of everyone working from home, trying to capture as much information we can so we can ensure the well-being of all of our colleagues at Lloyds Banking Group. So that kind of set the scene, and it meant me getting involved in things that I wasn't really too familiar with before, but I guess where I could play a part was trying to bring the right people together to help deliver this request, as to speak, from, again, very senior members of LBG. So that's kind of where the journey started. And a bit of background was we as a group were collating so much information in various places. We had SharePoint sites where people were logging if they were self-isolating, or if they were isolating but still able to work, isolating, not able to work, childcare dependencies, and that was all on a SharePoint site. We also had a official system where you log absences, where, like in most organizations, if you're off sick, you log it on a system. Except this system didn't log COVID as a reason why, because obviously at the time you didn't build the system in that way to capture that. We had Excel reports left, right, and center coming from various areas, probably about 13 or 14 Excel manual reports being sent. And all of these things were being put together by about 3 people, literally trying to make sense of all of these various reports and not dashboards, but spreadsheets, and trying to put that into a PowerPoint deck to tell a story for the senior members of the group. And that's where we came in. So we were asked, could we do something to help visualize all of this in a single place that's really going to add value? And that's where Tableau came in. So Tableau was our tool of choice, and we thought to ourselves, it's probably the best tool to use to visualize what is going to be not only very important information, but in a way that's digestible, in a way that you can make decisions off the back of. Importantly, it's going to add value, and actually in a way that a non-technical person can go in there and be able to slice and dice it. And I think that was the key for us, is that when you send a PowerPoint deck out, you are only giving the audience the information they need based on what you think they want to see. But if they want to see a slight different cutting segment and want to fiddle around with it, obviously Tableau is here. Now, I'm not here to kind of try to tell you what Tableau does and all of that. I think, you know, for most of you, it's just teaching you to suck eggs. But I just wanted to really go through of the impact it's had, not only on me being part of this project, but wider as well. So what we did is we brought all those data sources together and automated as much as we could possibly. And we did that using our data warehouse. And then we put Tableau on top of the data layer. And actually, what we started to really see is that engagement was now coming. Once it was delivered, it took us about a month to build, but once it was built, we started to see something slightly different to what we'd seen from existing reporting suite that we have in Tableau, that it was self-serve to the bank previously last year and for many years. We started to see that it was being used by very senior members of the team. Now, for the purpose of my talk, I work in a division called Group Transformation, and I'm going to refer to something called GTEC a fair bit. Now, GTEC is just an acronym for Group Transformation Executive Committee. Now, that is effectively a group of all the big bods in the company, the people that strategize and are quite high up in the company. So we started to see a lot of usage from GTEC, and whilst we've seen some of this before, we've never seen it really used in anger. And because of COVID, because of everything going on, we almost kind of like forced the hand of senior people using the tool. Now, as you can imagine, it's easy for managers in a certain organization or very senior people getting to a point where you almost go, I'm going to delegate responsibility to get this information. So when you're a director, you sometimes just get an email showing you the stats of the day, for example, but someone is going into Tableau and doing it for them. We kind of changed that around and spun it on its head and said, well, actually, you should be the guys using this. We're building this for you to use to make it easier for you. So you don't have to delegate this responsibility. You don't have to ask someone, can you get this information? And what we did is we set up the smart alerts. They got an email ping to them every morning saying the dashboard's been refreshed, and they were going in to use it. And a lot of them had issues with, how do I get it to work on an iPad? How do I do this and do that? And we overcame all of that. That's just kind of like housekeeping. But it did show that they were engaged and they wanted to use it. And the information itself, importantly, was all value add. This wasn't kind of vanity metrics in a dashboard that looks pretty, looks great in a graph, but actually doesn't tell you much. these were metrics that were truly going to drive decision making in the group, and they were metrics that really make a difference to our colleagues' well-being and helping us to understand what is it we can do for our colleagues to help them navigate through this. So we were capturing things like, you know, people still wanting to access buildings. We were capturing things like who was isolating but were able to work, who needed time off for dependency for children. We were things like kit, where people getting the kit they needed, be it desk chairs, desks, a mouse, so everything we can for them to work from home. So all the metrics were being used. But that's not what I want to focus on. The focus for me for this talk is really how engagement can really skyrocket if you get the detail right and if you really understand what your customer essentially wants. And that's what we did. We were in constant conversations with GTech to understand what are your requirements. We're not going to try guess what you want. You tell us at a very broad level what you're after, and we'll find the best way to execute it, be which data and what's the best visualization we could use within Tableau to help you digest this information. And that's kind of where we got to. And the amazing thing that actually happened was a lot of the GTech members were then filtering it down to their own leadership teams to say, guys, are you aware of this tool? Did you know that using this visualization can really help our division make some smarter decisions? Now, you've got to remember, this dashboard covered our entire division. It wasn't built for a specific team. It was built for the whole of our group transformation division. And there are numbers of teams within there. So this was serving a greater good for pretty much a number of departments. And as noise started to filter down from the GTech members to their leadership team, we started to see, and Charlotte very kindly started to pull stats for me in terms of how many people are going in. And the numbers were in the thousands. You know, it was accessed thousands of times. We were seeing the numbers of users using this dashboard in the 200s. Now, 200 is a number that actually has to be into context, because 200 could mean very little to some people. It could mean a lot to others, depending on the context. Now, our context is, because this was a COVID-related dashboard, we had to be very careful with who had access to this information. Now, we weren't doing anything in terms of data privacy or breaking guidance in terms of the regulation, because all of the data in this dashboard was at an aggregated level. So this wasn't about identifying individuals. However, this was used for a specific group of people. So what started off as, and Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong, when we did the GTech members, what started off as only access required for about 15 people, the benefits of what the Tableau dashboard was doing actually meant so many people wanted access to it because it was helping their divisions. I think within about a month and a half, we had 200 people accessing it. We were getting requests left, right, and center. Can we get access to this? Can we get access to this? And what we found is that these weren't people that were familiar with dashboard before. It wasn't just those people. We were getting requests for new user licenses. We've never used Tableau before. We've seen this being demoed. We want this. And licenses come at a cost. So there's an investment on that party to want to have this dashboard. It's not coming for free. So you can see it really does add value to them. It's not a, well, I'll have it, and if I look at it, I look at it, but if I don't, it doesn't really hurt anyone. Well, there's a cost element to this, so it did. And then as those users started to get it, they then filter that message down. And once that happens, all of a sudden, we now have a community. We have a number of people invested in a product of ours that actually now doesn't become just something that's being a short-term visualization suite of report that we're going to use and chuck away later. We had people from all divisions of the businesses giving us their lens on why they're finding it useful. Because as you know, in anything you do, you don't know what you don't know. So the reasons I may be using that dashboard will be very different to someone in security using that dashboard, to someone looking at people side using that dashboard, to cyber using that side, saying, well, how many people are able to connect from home? So all these different divisions in different areas are now finding a use for this dashboard. And what that also means, it now makes us open to a host of new data that we just did not know was available to us. Because we've got areas of the bank coming to us saying, we love your dashboard. It'd be great to have some of our stuff go into that as a build. So it almost became an entry point. So we were having cyber within LBG saying, we're looking at connection rates of how many people are connecting from home, so we can make sure that they have that ability and our VPN services are working correctly. That wasn't a request from GTech. That wasn't a request that we were looking at, but it did help them, and it was COVID related because we wanted to understand how our colleagues are working from home. So we brought that into the dashboard. We then had a lot of offshore colleagues within LBG who work on a number of projects for us. They had the same issue because COVID wasn't just impacting the UK, it was a global pandemic. So we had the offshore team asking us, all these metrics are brilliant, but it'd be great to see how this affects our offshore team. Are they able to log on? Do they have the kit they need? What are the protocols in place for that? We then bring that in, and all of a sudden you're now seeing that user groups are growing, engagement is growing, and importantly, one of the metrics we capture is, well, we could get 1,000 people, but is it the same 20 people just seeing the dashboard 1,000 times? So we had to put that into context, and what we saw was it's not just the number of visits to the dashboard that was growing, it was the number of users accessing that dashboard. And we also have a metric called new users. So in the last 30 days, how many new users have accessed it? And we just saw that go up and up and up. What I fully expected to see though was once things started to die down, so once March, April, May, June had hit and people got used to seeing this, does it then become it was a flash in the pan, it was great while it lasted, in the sense that at that time we were also COVID focused, but once we got back to a bit of the new normality and people are now allowed to come back into offices and the lockdown was lifted, what is going to be the use of this dashboard? And to be fair, I mean, because it was a bit like seeing it as my baby, I was a bit nervous that the viewership will go down and people will forget about it. But actually, where we protected ourselves, and not by design, but just by, in a way, collaboration, was that because we built so many new things in that dashboard, the new data that we never knew about before, as an example, areas we've never collaborated with before coming to us because they knew we create the dashboard, it created a real good community. And what it meant was, even when divisions outside of our division wanted to do something a bit different, who are so used to using Excel reports, who are so used to doing things in PowerPoint, that the first they ever heard about Tableau was via this COVID dashboard because it meant something for them to see. But in the back of their minds, it's almost like a subliminal message that, well, Tableau doesn't have to be something you just use because it was for COVID. We could use this in our reporting. We could use this for these analytics that we do. Oh, I love that graph that you showed about people logging on. I'm doing a piece of analytics on credit cards, and I'd love to be able to display it that way. And I'd love for my stakeholder to be able to pivot on it in a way, not like Excel, but to when they pivot on a new card type, for example, the graph changes, percentages change, does all of that in a nice visual way. Because essentially what I like to call it is Tableau visuals are doing what we used to try to do in PowerPoint, but had to keep going back to whenever someone wanted a different cut. And the visuals are so much better and the flexibility is so much better. So it's not just a case of growing our community just to get traction to the dashboard we've built and almost a feel-good factor of my dashboard is the one being viewed. The thing that I felt really shifted was the number of people wanting to use Tableau as a tool of choice to present information. And I think that was probably one of the biggest wins we got, because it was now being fully advocated by our leadership teams, our GTech members, who historically maybe would have known that Tableau's out there and it can do all of these things, but it never fed back up to them per se, because there's always someone further down the chain who is effectively gathering it from Tableau and putting it in a couple of slides. But the investment from GTech in terms of wanting to use the tool, in terms of promoting it to the wider business, that's where we really, really got traction. And like I said, it just brought a community together. It just brought so many people that are now starting to think of Tableau as a tool that they should be using. It's group approved within LBG. They just didn't know it existed, or that what it can and the power of it can do. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of obstacles along the way that we had to get through. You know, Tableau does make things look really simple, but the cogs behind the wheel, so to speak, of getting the data in a place, automating it, that's where the chunk of it works. But that data all stitched together is only as good as how you can present it. And I think that's where Tableau came in, really shown. I feel that I'm kind of doing the Zoom call when you're doing it with your mates and your family, that after a certain point you think, I'm just waffling now and I'm thinking of something to say. So I'm actually going to stop there before I bore you all to death and just repeat myself. So I hope you found that useful. I hope it was the content that you were looking for. And if it was more data orientated and you wanted to know about the mechanics, then apologies. But I just felt that for someone who didn't know Tableau and how it worked in the background, and really getting involved in all of that and actually seeing it through from a conception to data to build to then how people use it and engage with it, that was an eye-opener for me. And I'm just glad it was an eye-opener for a lot of other people in the group.
Thanks so much for that, Bhad. I personally, even though I kind of lived it, I did find it really interesting kind of hearing more about the scope of it, because I don't think even fully within our team we've kind of got the head round quite what a big impact it has had. And I think we're going to see, you know, as the years go on, we'll kind of continue to look back on this and say, actually, that was a turning point for you know, Tableau and the community and adoption, like really within the group as a whole. Does anyone have any questions? So I think we're going to do the dangerous thing of unmuting everybody. So, you know, don't all jump at once, but, you know, feel free to kind of raise your hand if you've got something you would like to ask kind of directly related to this. And then we'll kind of go into more of a conversation, maybe facilitated by some Menti stuff. We're not sponsored, I promise. And see what people want to chat about. So yeah, any questions?
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I think your best bet is going to be to put your hand up in Zoom, and then we can, we have a button which says allow to talk. And so we'll get you on to say some stuff. Thank you very much indeed, though, Bhad, for sharing. Okay. Over to you, Amy.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, thanks for telling us all about the COVID reports. Did you have to do any training with any of the execs, or any kind of user guides or instructions or anything like that for them?
Yeah, we did. So we actually demoed the dashboard to the GTech members and basically took them through how to navigate their way through it. Actually, when we built the dashboard, we put user guides everywhere on the dashboard. So you had the info buttons where you can click on it, and it pretty much every button on that Tableau report, when you hovered over it, it told you what you were getting from it, how you should pivot from it. I think the biggest struggle we almost had was how people accessed it. You know, we have restrictions in place, which is internal security within LBG. So we don't have a Tableau mobile as yet. It's something we're actively looking at, but we just don't have the sign-off approvals for that yet. We also were limited by our machines, which meant that, you know, you had to log in via our VPN to access that site. But as you can imagine, a lot of the senior folk are used to just picking things up on their mobiles and their iPads, so there was a bit of a struggle there. But in terms of user guide, we actually had links on the front cover. So we designed a front cover that there was a link that took you to another space which had a PowerPoint documentation of a full user guide. But we also had, you know, as you hovered over things, an explanation of what it was doing. But yeah, we did have to educate the people, yeah.
It was a bit of an education for us as well on how much we had to educate.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Talking
But
of
we did a lot of demos as well. So we demoed to various teams. We provided someone to take them through that and all of that. So I think that was the key there, that people were reaching out to say, can you show us how to use it? We definitely want it. We just need some help using it.
My question is going to be actually to that point, which is in terms of that, because I think we've all heard about how to demonstrate the use of dashboards or tools or products that have been built. And actually, to me, what's quite interesting is if I've built something, I'll normally sit down with whoever I'm working with, and we'll sit next to each other, or I'll just sit and watch them as they interact with it. So how have you found that in this environment that we find ourselves in now? Because it's certainly a different type of thing. I know you talked about the offshore team, so it's probably maybe
it was challenging. I think when you're sat next to someone, you can almost say, like, click on that, and sometimes you forget when you're on a Zoom call, you're almost going, click on that, which means what click on myself. I don't get what you mean. So you find yourself those habits. But I think what we did is that you could easily differentiate between the ones that were going to use the tool in anger versus those who were using it once in a while. And you found that the ones that want to use in anger wanted those one-on-one sessions. So it was just making the time. And I think I totally agree with you. It's not so easy to demonstrate how to use a tool when you've got 15 people on a Zoom call. It's too much. People pick up things at different paces. They have different questions to ask. We just did a number of one-to-ones. Now with the GTech, as I mentioned, we did a demo of the tool. However, I personally had to run 3 or 4 one-to-ones with a couple of people who may not have been as tech savvy as the others. Actually, it's the ones that weren't tech savvy that promoted it the most, because once you say to them, this is how you use it, they're kind of completely mind boggled at how easy it is to use. And they themselves admit they're not tech savvy. So when they're saying this is so easy, they naturally promote it to others.
That sounds like good news.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody else on the panel has any questions or anything they'd like to ask. And then again, to anyone in the audience, either you can use the Q&A box as well, so feel free to fire stuff in there, or if you want to put your hand up. I see Tatiana has a question. Tatiana, I'm actually going to try this. We're going to allow you to talk, so hopefully you can just join us here and maybe ask your question in person. There you are.
Yes, hi, thank you very much. I wanted to ask, did you launch all those dashboards and content you prepared as a formal program, or it was more an informal activity?
So it was done as an informal program, in the sense that it was to do something quick, since the government announced lockdown. So there was nothing along the lines of that you typically find, where you've almost got a brief and all of that, and there's finances in place and funding options and all of that red tape and jazzy stuff. It was almost like we need to do something type of feel, which did cause us huge challenges, because obviously when you do something like this, and specifically a topic like COVID, the regulations around data privacy and health information, that all comes into play. So whilst I think whilst we did informally start putting the wheels in motion in terms of the build, the one thing we didn't sacrifice, not sacrifice, the one thing we weren't willing to budge on is protocol and data privacy and regulation. We made sure we consulted all the data privacy managers for any data we were bringing in, and that had to go through formal processes. So that part of it was formal, all of that. However, interestingly, because of the dashboard itself now serving so many other uses, because some of the things we tracked, we were tracking just because we wanted to know how it was over the COVID period. But actually, we almost stepped back and said to ourselves, why would you as a group just track this anyway? This is just useful information, COVID or not COVID. This is actually useful and useful. Why wouldn't we want to know whether we've got a problem with people connecting at home? Even if we weren't in lockdown, it's good to know that people can't connect from home because our infrastructure is not right. So that's when it started to become more formal. And we are now going through the process of actually now trying to secure funding and have people who keep this running as BAU as opposed to a one-off project. We're actually moving this into BAU within the organization now.
That's amazing. Thank you.
If it moves to BAU, do you think it'll open up to more people?
I'm hoping so. So I think there's probably two elements to it. I think moving it to BAU is going to cause two things to happen. I think the first thing to happen, and it's probably too early to say this, but the certain things we're measuring will have to come off because it is so specific to COVID. But I think there's a lot of things that will be added as well. And one of the things that I've learned as well is that you could have 6 or 7 different dashboards sat within 7 different business areas. But when you bring them together, you almost find a common ground. So you almost find that actually this part does relate to this part. So if I can give you an example to kind of bring it to life a bit, if you're in banking, you'll have a team that's looking after personal current accounts, for example, and you'll have a team looking after internet banking. Yeah? Completely separate teams. One wants to know, are we getting more people using internet banking? One wants to know, are we selling more current accounts? They're not talking to each other, but actually you put them together, what you seem to find is when you do a bit of analytics, the people that use internet banking, 90% of them hold a personal current account. Because if you don't hold a personal current account and you only hold a loan, really, what are you going into internet banking for apart from looking at how much you still owe someone? Right? But when you've got a current account, you're setting up direct debits, you're transferring money to your friends when you're having dinner, you're setting up a standing order, you're checking your transactions to Amazon. That's where the link is. So put them together, the PCA team are now kind of going, well, actually, we can help you. If we can drive people who have current accounts who aren't using it to start using it, you'll probably see your internet banking adoption go up. And it's the same with this COVID dashboard, that when these areas actually talk to each other and see something in one place, they start to see the connections. And then they get to see how each team can help each other out with their data set by almost mixing the two together to get something a bit more rich. And that's what I'm hoping for in the future, that's what this is going to do, and that this dashboard is going to help drive that. It's going to bring people together to, back to my point, you don't know what you don't know. And when you look at 7 things in isolation, it's hard to see how it joins. But when you see it all in one place and how it's interacting together, all of a sudden you realize why this person's data that I never really cared about yesterday, I care about today.
Cool. Do we have any more questions?
I don't see any in the chat at the moment, but I'm more than happy to sit tight. Please, everybody, don't be shy if you do have anything you'd like to ask.
Well, I might come in with one question. Thanks so much for the talk. It's really good just to hear the sort of positive opportunity that's come through COVID, and through circumstances it has brought on a great sort of dashboard that will move on to in the future. My question really is, obviously, when lockdown came, it was a very difficult time, and staff morale may have been low. People would have been going through different things, or people might have been sort of worried about security, etc. Did you have any kind of resistance to what you were doing? People who thought, I don't know, why am I doing new stuff? It's all I can do to hold on to my job at the moment, that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering if there was any sort of negative sort of reaction to what you wanted to bring in to start with, and if there was any sort of
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the concern was coming from probably our data privacy guidance. It was almost kind of seen as that, are we being intrusive here? And actually, what are we using this for? Are we trying to monitor colleagues? You know, we've given this guidance to work from home. Are we being Big Brother and just checking up on you that you are working from home because we don't want to pay you if you're not working from home? That was naturally felt by some people. That why are we capturing log on if I'm logging on from home? Don't people trust I'm going to work from home? You know, and that did come about. So there's no way to avoid it. There was not so much from the team working on the project because we had the full context of why we were trying to do what we did, but there was a lot of people questioning once they'd seen the dashboard that they felt it was a bit intrusive. And even to the point where these dashboards weren't naming anyone, it's all aggregated data, but they still felt a sense of that. But it required some truth to be told, which is be as honest as you can be. And that's, I think, what we did. We did say that, look, a lot of this is before your own well-being. It's to make sure you're protected, you have everything you need to understand, you know, if you're isolating, you shouldn't be working. Don't feel you have to work, you know, making sure that you do get the time you need to take off and all of that. So yes, a lot of the dashboard does capture this as well for your well-being, but some of it is going to be for bank purposes, which may not be seen in a good light, because one of the things we look at is also like capacity and productivity. Yeah. So you want to ensure, so you start looking at things like, well, are we seeing that projects that are starting to slow down? Are we seeing that things that normally used to take us 3 weeks to deliver now take us 6 weeks to deliver? And that got a lot of resistance, because that's kind of a negative connotation. It's almost kind of saying, so if what used to take me 2 weeks is now taking me 4 weeks, you're going to give me a slap on the wrist. But I'm in a situation where I'm working from home, I've got kids at home, it's not that. And we had to message that and be very careful that we were so transparent as a group. And that had to come from the very top. That had to come from the leaders to explain why we were doing what we did. So we had to put that in place. But yeah, I think there was resistance. I think it's fair to say it wasn't all just this is a great tool, I love it. There was some resistance to it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And while I'm on, I'll actually pass on the next question that's come from Chloe, which is, does Lloyds use any other data viz software in place? And if so, did you face any challenges using Tableau as your tool of choice? We try and ignore Louis' photo bombing.
Yeah. No, I think as a group, you know, we're not stuck to one and just say it's this and nothing else can ever come in. I think we look at what's the right tool for the right purpose. Yep. So I'm always a firm believer that tools shouldn't be there to compete against each other. It shouldn't be Tableau versus Power BI, or it shouldn't be, you know, PowerPoint versus something else. It should be, you know, what we do should almost be tool agnostic, where you almost kind of say to yourself, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and this is the right use case for this particular tool. However, that said, I think we know that everything needs to go through a tender process. You know, what I probably wouldn't say is that, you know, we're kind of going out there using tools that aren't bank approved. I think we make sure that every tool we use is bank approved. And there are times where we think Tableau is actually the right tool over Power BI. There may be cases we think Power BI is the right tool over Tableau. But I think it's just trying to find the right use case for it. But we do try to be tool agnostic as long as it's within our suite of tools that the bank has approved.
Tool agnostic as long as it's Tableau.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I think the danger you can sometimes get yourself into is that, you know, some things come at a cost, some things come as part of a suite, which is seen as free when it's not really free, and you can easily find yourself pulling yourself towards something that's free. Why wouldn't you use this? You know, I don't have to pay a license cost to get a Tableau. But actually what you find is that you do that and it doesn't really give you all the functionality that you wanted from it.
Gotcha.
Awesome. If we have no more questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Menti, and we're kind of hoping that that will engage some conversation. Obviously won't be able to see the screen when I'm on Menti, so just shout if people have any ideas. But thanks again, Bhad, for that, and for all your answering all those questions as well. Inspiring, I'm sure, lots of people, hopefully. So if I share my screen again, if everyone can go to menti.com, you can go on your phone, on your laptop, whatever you're using, as long as it's connected to the internet. And then if you haven't already logged in, just enter the code 80927228. And when you're here, if you just tap the little Batman in the corner, start to see as you kind of get back into the Menti swing of things. Cool, looks like we've got a few people back. So this was the question we had before, but obviously we had a few technical issues. So just an idea of kind of how your community engagement has been during COVID. So obviously I think we've seen the kind of success that Bhad's spoken about within Lloyds, but then for other companies it can be different. And if anyone feels that they'd like to kind of say, if they've had really low engagement, if you're going to want to shout and share about it, now's a really good time. So I'll stop talking in case anyone would like to fill us in, or the challenges that you've seen that's kind of led to having that low engagement. Cool, I will move.
I think that's really interesting that the average is pretty much in the middle. So we've obviously got quite a bit on both sides. And the mode looks like it's, I don't know, 6 or 7. So we've got quite a lot of people who say we have grown, but it's obviously, quite a few answers on both sides in the middle.
Because obviously kind of coming from your industry, or your kind of old industry in entertainment and leisure, you're going to see a completely different outcome to Bhad and myself, where we've kind of seen COVID cause us a huge amount of extra data that's needed, whether it be business banking loans, or mortgage holidays, or anything. It's different.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, only 13 responses there, but it's not the distribution I was expecting at all. But okay, can move on.
Cool. So for people whose communities have obviously grown, really interested in kind of what sort of activities you've been carrying on with and you've been carrying out. So Tableau e-learning, or generic training, going to work, yeah. All the kind of activities that you've been doing to kind of keep your community buzzing during these times.
So this might make you all laugh, but a conversation we've had at Tableau is, why is there not a Tableau user group? Which is genuinely a question that we've had and kind of spoken to our team who run Tableau at Tableau, who also have gone, yep, that's a funny one. So that's something actually we're in the process of trying to figure things out, which is that there's lots of departmentalized work with Tableau going on, but we don't really have that forum across the company to kind of share what's going on and what people are doing. And so we currently have a team looking into what we might do there. So yeah, our T-tug, as we might call it, hopefully will come out as a result of us all being remote and not seeing as much of each other, which is quite exciting. So we'll see.
You've got to have like free tea bags for everyone at T-tug. It's an interesting idea, not my community, because does the community belong to somebody or does it belong to its people? It's like an interesting debate, isn't it? But yeah, I agree on the kind of external speakers. I was kind of just thinking today about how we could look at the money that would have been spent on a Christmas meal to actually use a really interesting like get a speaker in instead, and obviously maybe post people some beer to their houses or whatever on the side. And then the other one is someone organizing a Tableau day is fascinating. If you're kind of feeling happy enough to talk about hosting a virtual Tableau day, feel free to kind of put your hand up, because I think that's something a few people will be interested in, mainly myself for definite. Especially as it's hard in this virtual world.
I'm also quite interested in hearing about anyone that's continued with training and how they've been delivering that remotely. Oh, someone's got their hand up.
All right, Justina, I think you should be able to say hello. Or not, but you're definitely unmuted. So if you could try saying hello, that would be grand. Otherwise, if you could pop your question or whatever reason you put your hand up into the chat box or the Q&A box, and then somebody can get back to you.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Hello.
Yes, hello. So my name is Justina and I'm joining you from Finland. I'm quite newbie to Tableau community. I just started summertime in our company in Fiskars. And I started with learning myself, then providing trainings. We gave like around 50 desktop licenses and over 100 web editors. So I was preparing like trainings, videos, and that was my whole summer. So I was training people, plus there were trainings also on the data model. And now we just are at the point of organizing Tableau Day. It's next Monday. Very exciting, but with the great help of Tableau. We have now around maybe 50 plus attendees registered. So what we propose there is our peers will present their cases. Then we will have 2 presentations from Tableau expert and also general presentation like what's going on in Fiskars analytics. And we will keep it virtually over Teams.
Cool. That'd be really interesting to know how that goes. I don't know if you've seen our Slack channel that we have. I'm sure when we send out the kind of recording from the session, we'll put it on there, but it'd be really awesome if you could kind of give us all an update on how it goes.
Yes.
Because
Sure.
I, for one, am definitely interested in doing some kind of virtual Tableau day. I just don't want to, end up in that Zoom overkill vibe that I think we all felt, especially right at the beginning of all of this.
Mm.
Cool. So I'll move on to the next question, unless anyone has anything else to say quickly.
I see Paul's got a hand up as well. So Paul,
Cool.
You're in now as well and should be able to talk. There you go.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so I put in the chat there. By the way, I'm with Red Hat. I'm in Raleigh. And I put in the chat that I'm still doing live virtual training. And so the question came up just a second ago. Would love to hear from somebody who's doing that. I don't think I have anything revolutionary, but I'm happy to answer any questions. But I'm a certified Tableau trainer, and so I only train internally at Red Hat. And what we've done is basically taken the curriculum as it existed and moved it into a virtual setting delivered with Google Meets. So I have people, it's basically twice a month. And if I'm teaching something in the Americas that's local to me, we're on Eastern time, 8 to 5 for 3 or 4 days, depending on what the class is. And if it's something targeting EMEA or APAC, I'm generally getting up very early and doing half days for the full week. But it's live and it's about 15 people per class. So anyway, I thought I'd share since I think it was Amy maybe who asked.
Did you host those so before, if you were doing a course in like EMEA or whatever, would you just travel over to the UK to deliver that? Or would you host it virtually at that point?
So funny enough, I was supposed to travel. We just started this and it coincided with the start. So I was going to travel versus having the classes travel. But it never happened, which was a bit of a bummer. I had all sorts of international trips planned this year, but I've just been sitting in my garage teaching virtually.
Have you made any changes to the course, delivering it virtually, than you would have done if it was a classroom-based session?
You know, it's hard to say because I mean, the very first one I did was virtual. It just, the way it happened was I planned it all out like it would be live and in person. So I can't say that any of the changes I made I wouldn't have made anyway. But we do deviate somewhat from the actual curriculum in that we tack on a Red Hat bring your own data workshop at the end. So my typical class is 3 days of D1, D2 accelerated, and then we come back for day 4. And everybody brings something that's either already in production in our Red Hat environment, or they identify like a data set that they could build something on. And we sort of spend a day building. Now that day looks very different virtually than what I had in mind. Because, you know, you sort of see people sort of pairing up, me able to float around. But in essence, what happens is we gather for the first part of the day, everybody demos what they're going to work on. And then I use a Google form to set up one-on-ones with each person in the class over the next couple of hours. And we come back toward the end of the day and everybody demos their outcomes. So setting up those one-on-ones in the middle of the day is very different than what we had anticipated. We also do less group work. Like the thinking was, you know, some of these people are on the same teams and that would facilitate collaboration. So that day is different as opposed to the actual content that we get from Tableau.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Cool. Do we have any more hands up in that space?
So it looks like Chloe has a hand up as well. So I'm going to bring you into Chloe.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm from HSBC. Just in terms of training, it was decided as a team that we would provide internal training and certify our team, just to add the additional form of motivation. And it's definitely more intensive in terms of materials because you're not right there next to them, showing them what to do and how to do things. But I find that everyone's been more patient, and I get a lot more feedback in terms of whether the class is going too fast or too slow. And in terms of breakout rooms as well. So we have breakout rooms and we have exercises, and that has been really helpful just for small groups to get together as well. So that's how we kind of approach the training from our side.
Awesome.
Good. I think we're just gonna have to get started. I've been kind of putting it off for a while, and I think we've just done or in the middle of relaunching Tableau. And moving on to a new platform. So I'm going to have to pick up the training and just kind of get started virtually.
Are you talking training within your team or training within the users?
It's going to be all users. So we used to run beginner training as a kind of classroom-based session, 3 hours long. So we're going to have to definitely pick up some, probably just an hour-long kind of beginner introduction to Tableau type of thing. Also, we're going to have to start looking at how to train managers and some kind of exec director training as well.
I think when you do exec training, it's really good to get the EAs or PAs on the call as well, because they're the ones that tend to get the information for them. So definitely reach out to them, because that's been really handy from our side, from an exec perspective, just having sessions with PAs.
It's interesting to hear.
That was something I think Bhad also was doing with the kind of execs, keeping their EAs and PAs on side.
Yeah, so we basically made sure that they had licensing and training as well. we saw that as a routine. It's actually a very good point.
Amazing. Are there any more hands up? If not, I'll move on to the next slide.
One more hand up. I'm going to bring you in as well.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Hello. Yes, you are.
Hi. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be part of this community today and event. And it's my second community drive event. And hopefully, what I want to start with, actually, I want to go back to 4 years ago where I started my Tableau journey. And it was everything like Excel I used to think about. And then I'm coming from a finance background, worked about 8.5 years into banking industry, and then thought of again that accounts is not my cup of tea or the cup of profession that I would be, because I was looking for a more challenging perspective. And I started with Tableau as just as a person who wants to be, let me see what it has. So when I had my first demo session on Tableau in a nearby locality, I got sold. So that's where I'm coming from. And moving on ahead, I had learned myself on daily going while commuting to office and back to home. I used to Google about Tableau and see what actually the tool is about and how it's based on what are the back-end technical parameters or something that Tableau is built on, who has actually started Tableau, the software, and who built it. Everything right from the scratch. I was doing everything by my own. It's all about self-learning. So all of a sudden, I look back and 3 years has gone by, and I had a visual experience most of the time, and that was only about self-learning, just about Googling, and seeing it, learning it, and trying to remember everything. But there was no practice for me, and sometimes I used to be get busy with my office work and personal work. So managing both things, and also I have to have my own curriculum of about reading things. And I'm a kind of a person where someone, suppose if you have on Excel, let's say how to build up, let's say there's a question about how to build a dynamic pivots. So I come back home from my office. That's a question that's been boggling in my mind. So I get refreshed and I sit about till night 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. suddenly, and next day I have to wake up around 7 a.m. Next day I have to be in office by 7 a.m. So that's how interested and willingly I get myself into something if I find interesting. So for me, Tableau is a very challenging area because every day or every visualization that we have to do is not the same. So that particular single instance has given me a lot of ample opportunity to explore myself in both the parameters like creativity or using a creative dashboards, and also getting technically sound and knowledgeable. But coming back to the question, what activities I have carried on since COVID? Before COVID actually began, I have got my contractual employment ended with Deloitte. So I used to work for Deloitte for about 2 years, and before that, I was working in a banking industry. So I moved from banking industry into the data analytics and completely, and that's where my full-fledged career has begun into Tableau. So day in and day out, like there are 24 hours in a day, I was totally thinking about Tableau, and it's nothing else. I mean, when I'm working, it's nothing else about apart from Tableau. Even if I tried Power BI, but no, I can't think anything beyond Tableau. So that's how fanatic I became about, and I was so engrossed with the tool. So it's nothing that convinces me not to leave Tableau again. So that's the level of understanding I had built about a foundation, but I was skeptical about my skill sets with respect to Tableau and building dashboards. So I have been introduced to Make Our Monday from LinkedIn. One of the person in my connections has introduced me to this community. So that's where my career has begun. My connection has begun with Tableau community in January 2020. From there on, I started attending Make Or Monday sessions or weekly Viz reviews. There's only one session per week, and remaining time I have to work on building some skill sets. So I had a couple of hindrances, both personally and financially. So I was going through a hardship, financial hardship. So even to purchase something that probably, let's say, even to purchase some laptop or something, I have to first get a job. So that is my condition. And even to have a job, I need to have a skill. So both are interlinked here, and my financial skills, my financial goals and my personal goals, or let's say learning goals, everything is interlinked. So I have to maintain a balance. And between all these, there's also something that I have to bear in mind, that, I have to be very positive. So it's all about mental capacity, how much I can take in, how much I can do, what I should do, how other people are going, what they are doing, and how they are getting grown up within the community, and what different I can do from there. For example, let's say somebody has designed a new pinpoint bar chart, or let's say our sunburst radial chart or something else. So that is something new that I haven't seen in the past 3 or 4 years, but now that's a new kind of a graphical representation in Tableau, and it's getting selling like a hot cake. Or this is a new piece of work that in Tableau everybody wants to try it out. So I too wanted to bring that newness into Tableau. So, but there is a chance, very less fair chance for me. So because I was stuck up with only 10.3 version of Tableau, and I have to manage everything within that.
If I can just jump in there, I think you raised something relatively interesting, and I wonder, I might open this up to the rest of the panel actually, which is that idea of the let's call them the community programs that exist, whether that's Makeover Monday or Workout Wednesday or any of those things that kind of exist in Twitter or on LinkedIn. And I wonder if from, and again, forgive my ignorance as of this group, but are those the sorts of things that you're engaging or getting your user base and getting your user communities engaged with, that kind of that broader community stuff, or is it very much kind of internal focus?
I'd just like to answer this. You had a very great and very long story, and I think I've just met someone who's even more obsessed with Tableau than I am. I even wear the t-shirts to meetings. So it sounds like you're doing all the right things. I would even say, look, there's more to life than all those hours. But from a personal point of view, those community things, they are all the right things to do, and you will learn. You learn quickly, you learn so much, and you get a great support from all the fellow people who do it. You're preaching to the converted there, and I probably don't need to tell too many people about it. As with whether it's good to introduce them into your internal visualization communities, yes, it is. But I think you'll find that when you've relied on them so much from a personal level, you'll hear a lot of stories from a lot of different organizations who may also try this, but they'll have very sort of varying degrees of engagement and success. And I've learned over time to think that's okay. Not everybody is like me and like yourself, who thinks about it all the time and wants to kind of improve the whole time. They might be able to. You might be able to introduce Makeover Monday one week, and it might be an interesting data set, and you might get a few bites, and you might think, oh, I'm onto something here, and then the next week you don't get quite so much engagement. So there are ways, depending on sort of how much how much, I don't think authority is the right word, but anyway, but how much involvement you have with your team. There are ways of maybe incentivizing some of these things. So maybe having a Workout Wednesday as part of a sort of development plan, or as part of a sort of gamified way of learning Tableau and getting up to the next step. It may be that it's just something that you can just sort of try from the sides and say, hey, I keep telling you about Makeover Monday, or I keep telling you about Viz for Social Good, or some of these other community things. Why don't we try it this week? Why don't we set up a session and see how many people might be interested and have time? At my company, we had the option to allow volunteer hours, so that it was possible to sort of come to an agreement with sort of people from the appropriate team that things for sort of for training, but for projects that would also be for non-profits and things like that, could combine training time with self-improvement, but with volunteer time as well. So that kind of worked a little bit. I think the thing to do is small steps. Sometimes you may be lucky, you may find that some of these community programs fit really nicely into your organizations, and if they do, then you've got a ready-made structure, a whole load of data, a whole program, all sorts of different resources that you can use. But if they don't, just try something else. Maybe let's take a storytelling with data exercise this week, see if that catches on, or see if this sort of fits particularly well into a training that you want to do. I think going back to what Paul said earlier, just about training and how he's implemented it. I mean, I think in your training, there's obviously going to be a certain amount of change in how you do things virtually rather than face to face, but essentially it's still going to be the same kind of blend of regular training material, if you like, and how can I make this interesting to my people? So I think in Paul's case, it was, how can we use some data that you're going to use and actually sort of do some hands-on building with that? Or it might be, how can we do a half day or a little bit extra on very specific things that we do our way in our particular company? And then you have less sort of resistance to people who might think, well, Makeover Monday is all very well, but I don't want people to sit there and do visualizations on what the most popular cars are in Belgium when I've got people I want to do my work for my company with our data, etc., etc. So I feel like I've given about 8 different answers there. Probably my answer was still shorter than the question, but yeah, I think you can have some great success with it, but don't beat yourself up about it if it's not going to work for everyone. Have it as one of your tools in the toolkit is what I would say.
I think the other thing is, like, we're lucky that we can give our time. So I kind of worked previously, you didn't have the ability to do this in your spare time. So it's something that we always point people in our community towards, but it's not, we don't expect it of them, because they've got to have lives, and as Neil said, not everyone can love it as much as himself or us or whoever. It's really got to be something you enjoy, hasn't it, Tableau? Otherwise it's going to eat you alive. Shall I move on to the next bit, because I'm a bit cautious that we are running out of time from our extended session, because we almost ran out of time last time. So let me just get on. Oh no, I don't want voting to close. No. Cancel closing voting. Right. I've clicked the wrong way. Everything's going wrong. Cool. So kind of in the opposite to the previous question of what we were looking forward to, or what we carried on with, what are the things that we're kind of really looking forward to happening again in normality? What are the sorts of events and things that we're looking forward to being able to do? Again, if you kind of lost Menti during that time, menti.com, and then the code is in the top corner as well. We won't dwell on this one for too long, but we keep all of the answers that we get from here, and we're able to use them in the future as well. So if anyone is still there, submit your answers. You're also able to use lots and lots of different answers on this. So face-to-face using ends, if that's ever an option. Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, user groups and conferences are definitely sitting at top drawer. I absolutely love all of like how many of these involve, you know, spreading knowledge and being able to really collaborate in person again. Because I think that's definitely what people are missing. Tug in London, only in London, obviously, the best tug after the community drivers, which is obviously a solid first place, as we all know. But again, it's still very conscious of time. So I will move on if there is not another response in the next 5 seconds. Unless there are any urgent hands up that Louis,
I love the answer that somebody wants to see how tall everyone is.
Yeah, getting to know what people are really like. Cool. So kind of moving on to our on-the-fly feedback. We want to really know kind of these sessions are for you. We're a community, you know, it's not just us. I mean, I personally get a lot out of them, but just kind of some ideas of what you guys think so far of the session today, and then if you've got any ideas going forward. So firstly, kind of what did you think of the session today? You can rate each one of these individually as to kind of how much they apply to you. And it just helps us get an idea of if it's the right pitching at the right level and stuff like that. Obviously, you know, I mentioned the Slack group before. Feel free to kind of pop things on Slack if you've got any suggestions beyond these. Well, good that we are at like 100% excited for the next session, but we are no longer. So whoever you are who has not just given us a 5, you're not invited. Cool. So I will move on again because time. I know it's been a long time to be on a Zoom, but we've literally got 2 questions left. So maybe 3 actually. I think we've got 3 questions left. Does this time work for you? Obviously, you know, we want to make sure that we've got the best time for everybody, wherever you are in the world. So obviously we've got a few different locations. But if you've got any suggestions of, you know, a better time, we're also, you know, in conversation with some people looking at setting up kind of a US tranche potentially. So that will kind of maybe change time zones as well. But yeah, just I've just realised I haven't put no as an option. So this might be a slightly biased outcome.
There's no as an option on my screen.
Okay, no one's voted for a no. Gotcha. I feel much better now. I was like, oh, I just obviously
I guess if the time didn't work for them, Charlotte, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, true. I guess that is also why this might be a slightly biased poll. But yeah, again, as I said so many times, we're not sponsored by Slack, but if you've kind of got any suggestions or whatever, pop them in the Slack group. Because, you know, not only are we about driving communities, we're our own little community, and it's important that, you know, we're serving everybody and not just ourselves. So if you were to go for a day of the week to do this kind of thing, what day of the week would it be that suits you best? Kind of just thinking on when you think you get most availability and other bits. Definitely seems to be a bit of a bias to those midweek days. So I think it's probably worth mentioning now, we're looking to organise our December tug to be kind of right at the beginning of December, because obviously holiday season and stuff. So this will help us decide when we are to do it. But if anyone's got any, things you'd like to come and speak about, or you've got topics you'd like us to try and find a speaker to speak about, just shout. We're always looking for people to volunteer. I'm sure Bhad will testify that it's a really casual, nice, we don't bite. We're just interested in kind of getting lots of different opinions. So on that, kind of topics that you would like covered in the future sessions. So it doesn't necessarily have to be December. It could just kind of be whenever, as we continue on our path. Cool. So I can leave the Menti open as kind of allows people to still add some more ideas, but we are pretty much at time. So I guess it's just, does anyone have any last minute bits they would like to add?
I have one thing. Oops, sorry, Neil, you go.
All I was going to say is, for those who haven't seen this, I've put a link to join their Slack channel. If you want to continue the conversation after this, that's in the chat. Okay. And
one bit of news for you all is that the Tableau Conference-ish live website has just gone live. So for those of you that are thinking of joining the community and joining all of the great speakers that we've got, that literally just went live in the last half hour. So you can get online, register, and start building your agenda and having a look at some of the sessions that are available. So I thought I'd give that a plug while I'm here.
Amazing. Well, I guess then it just leaves us to say a really big thank you to Louis, obviously facilitating, and then also Bhad for joining us and giving us such a useful talk. It was really, really great. Cool. We'll leave it there.
Thanks so much, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.